Welcome to the Service Orchestrators, the Moxo podcast. I'm Nikhita, and today we're thrilled to welcome Amber Summers, who's the founder of Thrive Worldwide Wellness. Amber talks about how she's transformed holistic health and wellness into a truly digital high-touch experience. Now, Amber's journey is really important to hear. It's nothing short of inspiring because she overcame a rare autoimmune condition as a child, and she was able to do so with holistic healing. She went on to build a thriving wellness practice, and that's evolved from a brick-and-mortar center to a fully digital wellness hub. She works with clients across the world, providing personalized care while leveraging Moxo to streamline operations, manage that client journey from end to end, track progress, and create a seamless, secure, trusted experience for her clients. Now, in this episode, Amber actually dives into how she empowers her patients to take control of their health, especially in this day and age. The role of digital transformation plays such a big part in the wellness industry. And she talks about how Moxo's helped her scale her practice without sacrificing the personal connection that's so critical in holistic care. So join us as we dive into Amber's amazing story and explore how wellness and digital innovation are coming together to reshape the future of client care.
Hi, Amber. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Where are you joining us from?
Today, I'm in Pennsylvania,
Oh, wow.
Northeast Pennsylvania in the U.S., but I'm normally in Costa Rica.
Oh, wow. That's two very different climates and interesting places to split your time.
Very different. I'm home for the holidays, so.
Oh, that's good. I was about to ask, do you get the Costa Rica weather for the holidays or Pennsylvania?
It's my first time back here in 3 years for the holidays, so it's
Wow.
actually, I'm enjoying the cold. I used to hate
Yeah.
it, so I'm having fun with it right now.
I love that. In a way, it kind of sets the tone for the holidays too, right?
It does,
Because
yeah.
it's a nice festive environment. Oh, well, thank you. Thanks so much for joining us today. And we're just really excited to learn more about your business, your story. Are you able to provide us with an overview of the industry you operate in and your story, how you got started?
Yes. So I work in the wellness and healing industry, and I own a wellness center that has gone from being a brick and mortar location to being online, which is why I can live in Costa Rica and run my business remotely. So I see clients from wherever I am in the world, and I can see clients from anywhere in the world. So, but I was sick as a child. When I was 5 years old, I became mysteriously ill, and my legs started to swell, and they discovered that I had juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune disease that is very rare in children. At that time, it was 1 in 500,000. I don't know what the statistics are right now. And so I was in and out of hospitals for a couple of years. At the age of 7, my mom's best friend from high school, this was like a miracle, recommended a doctor who was a naturopathic doctor, and he saw me, and I decided at the age of 7, I was like, I don't want to have needles anymore. I don't want to, potentially end up in a wheelchair. And so I chose to try this holistic route, change my diet. He put me on a whole protocol for food and supplements.
Wow.
And literally within a month, I started to go into remission. So at the age of 7, I learned the power of what we put into our body, and like the choices that we make affect our health outcome. So I didn't think that was going to be what I did for a living. I wasn't like, I'm going to help people, like doing this. Like,
Yeah.
but, I learned muscle testing at a young age. So I was muscle testing all my friends, and everyone was like, oh, that, people who do that are quacks. I got the arrows my whole
Right.
life.
Yeah.
I ended up studying biology and going into the research sector, and just then was like, what am I doing in the lab? I don't like being in the lab. I like people. So then I went into like fundraising and marketing, and life took me on this long journey. But while I was in Washington, D.C., working at the NIH, I actually came across a holistic school.
Oh, wow.
And I decided to study holistic medicine there, and then 10 years later, the owner of that school asked me to start teaching. So I was
Wow.
turning out students, and the students were like, where are we going to go? Where are we going to work? And the
Right.
only thing in Northeast Pennsylvania was a spa, which isn't,
Right.
especially 10 to 15 years ago, spas were not wellness centers. Spas, you
Mhm.
get facials and you could get a massage, but it was nothing holistic. They were still using chemical products. Like, people weren't even nearly as aware even then. So I decided to start a wellness center. And so that's how Thrive was born. And when COVID hit, we went from we had our brick and mortar location for 8.5 years. And then when COVID hit, we converted to online.
That's absolutely incredible. I mean, first and foremost, that is seriously inspirational to hear what you went through and the way you were able to tackle it yourself at 7 years old and start addressing it from within, right? And taking a more natural approach. I do think it's an interesting time we're living into because there's a lot more talk nowadays in this day and age about what's in our food, what's in the products we use. There's all these conversations about seed oils. There's so many things we see now in our day-to-day lives that even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, people would look at you like, what are you talking about? Right.
Completely.
So to go through what you've been through for so many years and having experienced it yourself, I can only imagine the level and wealth of knowledge you have on how to help other people.
Thank you.
And do you feel like, I guess maybe taking a step back, if I look at Thrive Wellness, what was your goal when starting it, right? Now, having been through what you've been through, having experienced a situation like this yourself, and then kind of seeing both sides, right? I'm sure the very natural approach to the more, let's say, standard practice approach. What is Thrive's motto? How do you go about helping your patients? Is there a certain, say, philosophy that you stick by? What do you hope to solve for?
So my goal is to empower people to learn that they can heal themselves, that they have the ability to make different choices, and that there are answers. So when somebody feels empowered and educated, they can take their power back and they can then take action. And when they can take action, they can feel like they're an active part of their own healing process. So, I mean, the deepest mission of Thrive is to help change the paradigm of how the health industry works. In today's age, it's go directly to drugs. It's been very heavy focused on drugs and just masking symptoms. And the integrative side has been really suppressed and shunned. And so on the deepest level, Thrive is about changing the entire paradigm of how medicine is practiced. And the way I'm doing it is, person by person, helping them to learn and understand their own abilities and healing powers, even when it comes to the power of the mind and the soul and setting intentions and frequency. It's not just about cutting out toxins and, learning to heal your body through supplementation and meditation. But it's about actually rewriting your future. So knowing that you can do that, to choose.
That is incredible. And honestly, there's so much that I would love to dive into there. I think one thing that really stands out to me is you're talking about how you want to shift the paradigm of healthcare, right? And I think we also at Moxo, we talk about how the digital landscape and the digital paradigm is really changing how things are done. And I think you are a great example of sort of the two culminating together, happening at once. And another thing you mentioned, right, was talking about how, let's say, personalized every one of your clients' needs are and how you're really offering them a very comprehensive and integrative experience. And so I would love to hear a little bit more about how it is that you're able to really offer such high touch and personalized service in this digital manner, right, through the Moxo platform.
Yeah. Well, Moxo was like an answer to my prayers. I just have to say that. I've been talking to my support team about having a platform to communicate with my clients for a very long time. And when we came across this and were introduced to it, I was excited. But of course, the booking systems I've used in the past, they're like, oh, it's fantastic. And then you start using it and you're like, oh, crap. Like, it doesn't do this. It doesn't do this. Yeah, it's a nightmare. It's like constant, like, disappointment. And converting to an online business, to be honest, I was really worried. I was forced to do it. And it's turned out to be a true blessing. Like, I have a client that I care for who lives in, Singapore. I can see clients in California, in New York, London. Like, it's being able to take the platform of what I'm doing and helping people and have it be integrated online has been such a tremendous blessing. And I didn't start using Moxo until it was a little over a year ago that we integrated the program. And so I've had a full, 13 months now, 14 months of working with the system and seeing what its capabilities are and how I can utilize it to do so many things. And, it allows me to track all of my test results with my clients. It allows me to have our meetings set up and they've got one place to communicate with me through, not, social media and then email and then, texting me. And, everything was so spread out. And so now everything's focused and all my team members are in there. So we've got our booking and wellness plan support specialist, and then we've got our product specialist. So if anyone needs anything, they're just on their app. They're just like, hey, Betsy, I need to order XYZ, like literally right through the app. So it's streamlined a lot of things. All of my session notes I keep in there. I'm currently teaching certification classes for holistic nutrition. And so my students, I use the Flow platform for them to know what they need to be doing for our classes. We do our course meetings through there. We record everything. So if somebody misses the class, it's already recorded and in there. It's helped me so much. It's helped me organize everything that I had in all these different places and be able to put it into one spot.
Well, I can imagine. I mean, just from hearing that, right? I guess there's so many areas to talk about there, right? So almost to get started, I think it's really interesting when I hear you talk about that it's almost like you've created your digital wellness hub, so to speak, right? For lack of better words, it's kind of transforming the entire approach to wellness. Because I do think in many ways, and tell me if I'm wrong here, please, but a lot of times people go through the system and then get disappointed because they don't have results, or, you deal with standard practice where somebody says, oh, you have this symptom, treat that symptom. And then, hey, you have a multitude of other problems, right? And I hear so many people go through that. And I think now that's being talked about more with the standard approach to care. So I'm sure when people come into, your business, they're really almost coming in saying, hey, a lot of these approaches didn't work for me, or I'm stuck, right? I don't know what to do. So I can only imagine that client life cycle as a result with you looks a bit different. Could you walk us through what is a typical scenario with a client coming in, and then how do you work with them as a result?
Sure. So what it used to be, just to give you a comparison, when I had the wellness center, people would walk in, I would meet with them, I would charge them. We'd sign them up, like, come in, let's do this appointment. We're going to get you started with an initial wellness visit, which usually took between 2.5 and 3 hours. So, and then it would be piece by piece. I'd be like, okay, I want to see you in 2 weeks. I want to see you in a month, and I would give them recommendations that day. But it was very intensive and it was a lot all at once. And it also didn't set them up for a full commitment to their healing. It just set them up for a month-to-month commitment. So what I do now is I meet with people for free for 30 minutes, and then I create a 6-month wellness plan for them. If I think I can help them, and because I usually test them out too with a couple of questions or statements to see, is this person really committed to their health? Because if they're not, I can usually tell they're just fishing for someone to give them a quick fix. And unfortunately, those people aren't ready for what I have to offer, which is actually to get better and to have you do what it takes to get better, which is not easy.
And for most things,
So,
it's not overnight, right? You need people who
oh
are
God,
serious
no.
about understanding that, right? It takes time and it takes effort and commitment over time, and you have to have the
Yeah.
patience for that.
Yeah. And a financial investment in yourself.
Mhm.
You're committing to take supplements, ongoing, which usually is several $100s a month. And then you've
Mhm.
got the care. And so I meet with people, I create a plan, we bring them into Moxo when they decide to move forward. And so we register them in and put them into a flow so they know what they need to do to get ready, for being with us in Moxo. We set them up on our apothecary right through Moxo. There's a link, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. So, and then I see them through the 6 months, and then we review their goals. We see what they've reached, what they haven't reached, and we decide what's going to be their next step. Will they do another 6 months? Will they just go on like a 3-month check-in something every 3 months? We kind of go from there depending on what results they've had.
That's incredible. And to be honest, you said something there about commitment, right? Having let's say, a full commitment to health and financially to investing in themselves. And one thing it brings up for me is you were also talking about how you have international clients in Singapore and the UK, and you also spend half your time in Costa Rica. So given that the nature of your business is so global, yet requires this simultaneous commitment, right? Which from you, I would imagine, requires you to be responsive, flexible, adaptable, and really accessible to your clients, given what they're going through, right? Can you talk a bit about how you managed to do that in the first place?
Again, just to bring it back to the platform, it keeps everything in one place for me, so I'm not getting bombarded. When I can respond to people, I go into Moxo and I respond to them, which is usually within 24 hours. I make it my goal to get back to people always within 24 hours. And it just having it on my phone, having it easily accessible. It pops up that I have a message. So, and with multiple time zones, that can become difficult. You don't want people pinging you like through regular texting or things like that. So yeah, it's created a very easily manageable container. And it also allows for setting up time zones for the clients. So when we have a meeting, they get notifications in their time zone for my time zone. So, and even my team members are in different time zones. So we're like, sometimes it gets a little complicated, but that Moxo has a setting for that for the different clients.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I wonder when I hear that too, right? I think it almost sounds like you're able to manage and say better streamline this whole process, be wherever you are, but also because in a way, if you have all of these specialists, it's not just you working with a client, right? You're working with them to create the overall plan, but then you bring in different people for different parts of the process. So I can imagine even if you're not directly needing to engage with them at a certain point in their journey, you want to always be able to go in and see, oh, this person is working right now at this stage with these parties from my practice. Okay, that means I know in 2 weeks they're going to reach this stage. Like you need that way to go in and say, here's this holistic picture, right, of what's going on across my practice, what's going on in each person's case so that things are moving, right? They're getting the help that they need. And then, hey, you as a business owner and a wellness coach and, yourself can come in and say, oh, somebody needs my assistance. I can dive in where required, right? Because there's context set around each person's case and what's taking place.
Yeah.
And have you heard, any specific points of feedback or just on the experience itself from your team members working with you, your clients? Like what have they told you about the experience of working digitally and experiencing wellness in this new way that you've created?
Well, sometimes there's a little bit of a learning curve with people. So they're a little resistant to putting an app on their phone or to, learning to log in through a new route, so we go through little hiccups with that sometimes. But all in all, I think we were doing Zoom for the longest time, they like to have the face-to-face interaction. And so, we get what we need working together. we don't need to be in person, which is a true blessing, because, sometimes it's really difficult. And it also takes a lot of energy as a practitioner when you're in person with another individual. So having this container, to hold our sessions in, and knowing that, the appointment time is this block, and it's much easier to say goodbye when you know your appointment's ending than when we had the brick and mortar location. It's kind of like, well, we could just keep talking. And then they need to go out, and then we go through this whole checkout process. And it definitely took a lot more energy to hold space and complete the process of, supporting somebody in one visit. With it being on a digital platform, it allows us, like you said, to kind of finish these pieces at different points of time. And it gives people space also to process things.
Yeah.
Mentally, emotionally,
Absolutely. Especially when holistic care, it's like you said, right? Somebody can come in with an issue, but it's all the questions people don't typically ask. It's like, has anything else happened in your life? What are the kinds of things that you stress about? I mean, I know because I've gone through a holistic journey once before, and it's so interesting how different it is from standard practice care, right? The level of depth you have to get into with somebody to really learn who they are, what's going on in their life, and things they may not even think about that are just natural to the way they live could be a sign or let's say a very important piece of data in understanding their case or how to treat them. I can imagine, right?
Absolutely. You got it.
Well, so then in a way, if you're able to say, kind of transform the model of what that care looks like, I can only imagine, yes, there's this natural instinct to say wellness, it's very personalized, so therefore I need to be in person. But in a way, you're giving people more accessibility. You're creating this private, exclusive environment that they know, hey, whenever I want, I can technically dive in and access it. And psychologically, that has to do something, I'm sure, for people on the client side, right? Being in the case of wanting treatment and needing help, that could, in a way, make it feel more comforting that you have that extension of care wherever they are.
Yeah, it's always with them. And we record all visits as well. Mm-hmm. So everything goes into everyone's calendar. And so if we have a really profound conversation in one of our sessions, it's all right there. They can go back to it and re-listen to it. And sometimes I'll say, hey, we're at 45 minutes into the session. Note this down and go back to this next week. And it's like they have this whole library of support just sitting there at their fingertips.
Yeah, I do think too, it kind of is a mindset shift for each of your practitioners involved as well, right? I can imagine for you, you're operating this. What is it like for them?
I actually don't. I'm the only practitioner.
Oh, okay.
There are a client support specialist who books appointments, or if somebody has a reschedule, or when we get them set up in a wellness plan, books them out for 6 months and helps support them in that way. And then we have a supplement specialist who manages all orders. So I set up, I say, okay, this is what this person needs. I put it through an action in Moxo, constantly, creating actions for the team. Like, hey, can you adjust this? Can you fix this? Can you reschedule so-and-so to here? Can you, pull this order together and set deadlines for them? So, but that's my team. If I refer practitioners, I actually refer them to practitioners who are in their community, who they can access, either like right now, I sent someone to a Rolfer in their community, or I've sent people, to other type of bodywork practitioners. I'll send people, I'll get them signed up at their local gym, or, helping them basically to take advantage of the wellness community around them for various aspects that they're missing and needing for their support.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially in a way I'm sure it empowers you then as a sole practitioner to be able to take on more clients, right? And still give them that dedicated time and care. Because if your team is better able to operate and manage each person's journey, and you're able to see and dive in when things are relevant to you, or, take note of the highlights and what's the information you really need as a practitioner. Ideally, you're not sitting there thinking about, how to manage their operation and whether, you've sent them an email on time or whether you've checked in at the right time and the appointment has been booked. That's ideally somebody else taking care of that process for you, so you can dive in and spend your time where you're really delivering the human advice, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And to add on to that, I'm really amazed that you were the one, let's say, orchestrating this entire business. I didn't realize you were the only or the sole, let's say, practitioner. And so to think about it, right, with you directing not only your team members, but individual parts of the process with each and every one of your clients, right? I'm really curious to know, because you've mentioned a few of them already, but can you kind of walk us through the different services that you offer and maybe how those look, the workflows that you use to, let's say, implement them online?
Yes. So, well, first of all, thank you for your compliment. We had a team of 17 people before COVID hit.
Wow.
So at the brick and mortar location, we had all kinds of amazing practitioners. But that in itself took a lot of energy, because then you're managing this group of people that, and we all interacted. Everybody was in the same center. And so I actually am really enjoying being a sole practitioner, because all that energy that I spent managing the team, the large team, now I get to put it towards the clients, and by streamlining, right, it opens up more energy for me to give that to them and to maybe help more people. But as far as the process is concerned, the flows, we have the welcome flow, and then I have a flow to do our first 3 meetings. So instead of it being this long, extensive initial visit, it's broken up into 3 one-hour visits. So in the first visit, we focus on history. On the second visit, we focus on nutrition. And the third visit, we focus on observations, which I can receive through photographs. So I practice iridology. I practice traditional Chinese medicine. And so through those different observational tools that I have, I can then do an assessment. And I use all of that information comprehensively as we're kind of moving forward through the goals that we're trying to achieve. So that's all in a flow. And so if I miss something, or, it's always sitting there, like, needs to be completed. And then we have, follow-up. Some people I meet with weekly, some people I meet with bi-weekly, some people monthly. And so all of that is set up in the calendar. And, those are really the main tools that I use with clients, aside from typing in all of their session notes. There are, getting people to, let's say, send me their photos, right? So in the flow, there's a request for documents, and then they have to complete that, and it shows them as they're completing it. So these are things that have helped us through Moxo to get people to do these steps and to see what they need to do along the process. It really does help the client to be more interactive with the process of knowing what to do and providing me with information. I also give them assignments every time I meet with them. So I go into the action section and I assign, okay, before we meet next time, I'll give them 3 or 4 tasks that they need to complete. So then when I meet them in 2 weeks, I go back and I see, have they completed it? Have they not completed it? Where do we need to check in, on this front?
Yeah, there's some level of structure and accountability in each case, and every step in a way.
And I never had that before. I didn't have a tool that would provide that. I could send them an email that would say, hey, I want you to do this. But that's it. Then the email goes off into the, the
oblivion.
Emails, right?
Yeah. Well, and in that process, I'm curious, when you started as a brick and mortar business and then you made this shift to digital, did you go from brick and mortar to Moxo, or was there a period of time in the middle where you were just running on email and Zoom, you said, right? So what was that transition like? How did you find Moxo? What made you think, I need to change the way I'm doing things?
Well, I've wanted it since I started digitally. I wanted a platform, but that was in the end of 2020. And I didn't partner with Moxo until the end of 2023. So
Wow.
I had 3 years of juggling people,
Right.
and trying to have it systemized, which we did, but it just was so much more energy intensive, because you're trying to, okay, email me your blood work. Okay, so it comes in through email, and then it's got to get put into a special file that I would keep for the client on my computer. So I'd have to download it and then move it in. Now, when they get their blood work, they just send it to me right through the portal. Like I said, I had people communicating with me from several different platforms because it was just kind of, well, I'm online now, I'm remote. I have to give them ways to communicate with me. I don't want to require it to be just it never felt right to do just one because some people don't do social media. Some people, prefer these different ways. Some people prefer email. But with Moxo, because it's this system, it's very easy to say, look at this amazing tool that we're offering you when you work with us. And we'll help you. We'll support you to get the app on your phone. And, these are the directions of how to do it. It's very simple. And they see that it's an asset for them, and so then they're more engaged in doing it. It's a place to store all of your test results and all of our sessions. You're going to have recordings of everything. And so I think that helps people to see it not just as a communication pathway, but actually a benefit of them working with me.
Absolutely. It's like it's a clear, let's say, destination to go throughout their journey. Like in the end of the day, we have an app for food delivery. We have an app for our, banking. We have apps for everything, right? And the app itself sets the context. So by you providing this app or this interface, you're saying, when you enter here, this is a place you go just for the context of your whole journey, right? And it's, in a way, it's unsaid, but it presets kind of the psychological expectation that there's a, let's say, more out of what you're doing in that app versus just going there to communicate with somebody, right? It's really their entire journey that they can dive right into when they go into the app.
Yes.
I'd also imagine that you are, through the app, where you're able to, let's say, offer your clients a safer experience, right? I know for me, if I were to email my blood work, I'd be a little worried, just because, like you said earlier, emails get lost into the oblivion. I get spam mails every day that seem sketchier and sketchier and more real, actually, and so I think there's something really nice about the fact that you're able to not only offer your clients this whole comprehensive, one single location, but that it's secure and that they can feel safe there and have that safe space even virtually.
Definitely.
Especially when wellness can be, it's clearly like, look at your case, and in so many people's cases, it can be life-changing and transformational. And that's also scary, I'm sure, for people to get started. It can be daunting. So having that safety and knowing, hey, my information is private, there's accessibility, there's organization around my journey, I can imagine that brings a sense of calmness to getting started with Thrive Global Wellness.
Definitely.
So, that gets me to another question, right? Which is, if you're thinking about the journey a client goes through with you and personalization, how do you feel, let's say, other businesses should think about where wellness is headed, right? I mean, we know this. Wellness is all about personalization. It's all about getting into the finer details and solving for the problem and not just the symptom. So what would be your advice to, other people out there trying to get started on a wellness journey? And are there any specific trends or interesting things you think are emerging in the wellness industry now that you would want people to pay attention to?
My gosh. That is a very broad question. And because my journey has been so long and so broad, also, there's so many avenues now that people are looking at and focusing on. I can say for me personally, nutrition and testing, has been like a really good core of my practice. And It helps people get a baseline, when you're doing testing, and then follow-up checkups to see how things are changing. And I think just really giving a personal touch, love, you're giving, if you're in the wellness industry, it has to be about helping others and not about yourself, or, because I have seen that sometimes in the industry, that the direction of, the individual's intentions maybe aren't fully, clear. So being in right mind, being in alignment, and giving that, I feel like that's what people are really looking for. They're looking for that connection and for that customization, and not just plugging someone into a program, because usually what happens with those is people buy the program and then they never do it. So I would say, definitely going down the road of really supporting people in their individual needs.
Well, and I think you bring up an interesting point too, because nowadays I see this day in and day out. I love health and wellness personally, so it's a big interest of mine. And I'm getting inundated with ads all the time, like, oh, do this natural supplement for, this purpose. And have you seen this new influencer posted this, amazing new product that's going to take your skin back to when you were a baby? Or like, you see this all the time, right? Every day. So it's almost going the other extreme now. And maybe I would say my feed is quite, let's say, specialized or biased towards what I search for as well, or what I'm interested in. But it's definitely an overwhelming world we now live into on the other side, which is like, hey, there's so many products out there. And a lot of times it's hard to decipher from those millions of products being advertised to you what is actually good for you, and getting into the science behind it. So how do you approach this with your clients, and how do you think about educating them and educating the people you're certifying through your course as well, on how to think about approaching all the various supplements and products out there?
Well, I offer supplement consultations for people to help them feel less overwhelmed. And I offer to them, meet with me. Let me see what you're taking. Let's see if you're in the right direction for what you have going on. And how can we simplify it? And, for people who self-treat, I think it's great that they are getting involved in their own health journey, that they're looking to do these things and to help themselves, but also to be wary of, just falling into the next thing. Or also, if you're following someone on social media, not going down these rabbit holes of, I literally was just talking to one of my clients the other day. We're going to do a post about it because she was following someone who educates people on heavy metal toxicity and heavy metals in food, in different products. And, this individual was like literally starting to feel so overwhelmed because it's like, it's in everything. There's heavy metals in everything. And I'm like, yes, there pretty much is. And guess what? Our bodies are made to detoxify these things. They are natural elements from the earth. They're not synthesized in a lab, a lot of these things. Maybe they come from a chemical that's been synthesized in a lab, but the fundamental element is actually from the earth. It's from our periodic table. And our bodies are, when they're functioning optimally, made to get rid of these things. Yeah, so it's okay. Like, don't let yourself, at least as far as clients are concerned, don't let yourself get overwhelmed. And as far as my students, when I'm working with people, I always have in the back of my mind when I'm teaching, how can they show up for the clients to support them, in the best and most effective way? And that is, not being an alarmist, never, saying you have this, you've got this problem, it's bad, nothing is ever bad or good. It just is. And we need to, look at it. How do we want to look at it? How can we support you in this? How can we empower you? And even with all of that, going on in the back of my mind and how I work with individuals, there are still some people who get overwhelmed and freaked out, like when they
Yeah.
get the results and things.
Right.
So, but yeah, I kind of went on a tangent there
No.
answering that question, but
No, I think it's so interesting because in the end of the day, your approach and, obviously, hey, we love Moxo, we use Moxo. But I do think it's really great to see Moxo's application in a situation like this where there's so many stages in this type of journey where you can get overwhelmed because whatever it is when it comes to somebody's personal health, that's probably a scenario you're, more stressed relatively, right? Compared to other situations because it's going to force you to think about yourself, force you to really think through your health and what's happening inside of you. So I can't imagine people are not stressed or people are in the greatest state of mind sometimes when they're conquering, issues that they begin with. So to be able to provide this experience where you're taking care of them through each and every stage of this and they have that accessibility, but they also have that access to know, hey, if I get overwhelmed or I'm getting inundated by the digital world, I also have this easy, convenient location to go to where things are organized and it's clear and I can have peace of mind that I can get true guided information in a single place. I guess, one more thing that comes to mind there, right, is when you're thinking through your experience so far with your clients and your team, have there been any measurable results you've been able to see? I know it's only been, this year that you've been using Moxo, but anything like the number of clients you've been able to take on, any changes you've been able to see in your business, the way you operate?
let's see. Well, operations-wise, it has simplified a lot, which then has allowed, like I said, the energy to go into other places. Because it's coming off of the pandemic, I'm having growth every year thereafter. So I don't know what I can attribute to Moxo or not attribute in that direct regard. And because I'm still figuring out how many people can I handle, like in Moxo, I could take on, 30 people. Like if I had the time, it's fantastic. But I'm still finding my own limitation, level. So I have to be careful, even though, yes, it optimizes things. If I had 4 other practitioners working with me, I could just go like this and send out the, the work to others, which I could. It's a great thing about Moxo. Like I'm poised for growth if I decide I ever want to take on another team member. So for me, it's actually like, okay, rein it in, Amber. I actually had too many people at one point and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, I gotta manage my own wellness and care, and because it's easy, to keep working.
Absolutely.
Especially when it's with Moxo. And you guys, I don't know, I gotta give a shout out to Yukta. She's been a smart person and she is epic. I have never worked with a company where every single time I bring up a challenge, there's a solution. You guys take care of things like immediately. She's checking in on it. She gets back to me. Anytime it's like, oh, this would really be awesome if we could have this. Oh, guess what? That's in the next update. I feel like we joke. I'm like, you are a magical fairy, and every time I have a wish, you just go like this, and you're like, granted.
I love that. That's incredible.
She's hysterical. She's fun. She's kind. She's brilliant. So, the support that I've had through Moxo has been epic. Like, and I think that makes a big difference too. Like knowing that you've got someone there, and we have a question. Boom, it's answered. Like. Oh, we'd really love it. We're trying to do this with our clients. We'd really love it if we could do this. Okay, here's a solution for that. Here's another solution. Like she doesn't only give me one solution. Often she gives me 2 or 3 options. Well, you could do it this way or you could do it this way. So, in that regard, as far as like working with a platform, I'm just blown away. And I think I've still very much so still learning the capacity of what this program can do for me and my practice. Ultimately, I'm going to run automated programs like where I'll meet with students maybe once every 2 weeks to have personal calls, but that I want to plug them into a program where, okay, this is your, bless you. this is your, education program. They buy level 1. They go through it on their own, but we have individual meetings. And so I can see, oh, look, they've completed their first week of course material, and I can have videos in there that they can access for training and teaching that. So now through this, I can duplicate myself, and my efforts through the Moxo platform. So I think, as far as like growth in this 1 year, I know personally I've been able to streamline a lot of things, but I think the potential there, in the years to come, I'm excited to see where it goes.
Oh, that's amazing. And it's so great to hear that in a way, Moxo's given you that, let's say, broader opportunity to think about where you want to put your time and where you want to grow. Because I guess, we live and breathe this ourselves, right? At first, we're so happy to hear that Yepta has been such a support to you and we've been able to provide that. But I really do think, a good part of it is because we all live and breathe using Moxo every single day ourselves. Like, we run our teams that way. We work with our clients that way. Like, I don't think we could run our own business without Moxo. And that in itself, I very much relate to that because it frees up thinking time. Like, even as, let's say, a team manager, like, I have more time by using Moxo to run projects, to put time towards other avenues and thinking work, and that's what we should be doing to be efficient and, help grow the business. So I completely relate to that line of thinking that in a way, the biggest emergence you see is the ability to spend your time actually delivering and adding to what you have, right? And building something more that can contribute back to your organization. And hopefully the way you set up your processes and your operations enables you to do that. And then you're doing something right. Naz, anything else from your side that you wanted to ask Amber?
No, not really questions for me, but just honestly, it's great to hear how helpful Moxo has been in your journey as well. I think it's incredible what you do in supporting your clients. And so honestly, I'm sure I speak from everyone at Moxo when I say that we are so thrilled and happy to be supporting you as well. And yeah, it's been a pleasure talking to you and really getting to hear the ins and outs of your story and of Thrive Worldwide Wellness.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amber. Appreciate your time. And I'm sure our audience is going to really enjoy learning from you as well, just as much as we have.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for everything you do. Keep doing it because we need you.
Oh, we really appreciate that, Amber. Thank you.
Yeah.
And happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays.